Hitchcock for Town Supervisor, Andrea Hogan for Town Supervisor, Kathleen Lohr for Town Clerk, and Peter Olszewski for Town Council. Okay, so we will start with our introductions. So the first one will be Michael Dennell, please.
Come on up, or
I'll hand you.
Oh, they're gonna
It's up
pass
to you
it.
if you want to stand.
You have the kids. Where's the microphone, Kathy? Check.
hello everyone, thank you for coming. I'm Michael Dennell. I'm running for Highway Superintendent. I've owned my own construction business for 18 years, and I've worked for the Highway Department for 4 years, so I think I have a lot to offer. Thank you.
Okay. Next will be Frederick Comstock, please.
My name's Fred Comstock. I'm 53. I live over on Park Road in Johnsburg. I moved here 24 and a half years ago from South Glens Falls. I'm a 24-year member of the Garnet Lake Fire Department. I spent 6 years as Assistant Chief and the last 14 as Chief. I'm also a member of the Warren County Fire Advisory Board. I volunteer with a national organization called the Freedom Hunters, which provides outdoor adventures for Purple Heart recipient veterans. I currently work for Warren County DPW. Previous to that, I was 7 years at the town of Johnsburg Highway. I worked construction my whole life in all aspects. Throughout working at the county in my fire service, I realized the importance of taking advantage of training available through the county and the state. As Highway Superintendent, I will encourage training at every level of the highway employees. This will reduce our workers' comp liability, improve safety, greatly improve efficiency. I have a CDL, and my work experience will help me manage and understand the challenges faced by the town of Johnsburg employees. I look forward to working in cooperation with the town board, the county, and the state. As part of the town team, I will work closely with the budget officer to ensure fiscal responsibility, as highway expenses are the largest part of the property tax expense. Running a fire department has trained me well. I know how to do a lot with a little. As part of the town team, I will be available to the town board to work together. I will attend town board meetings when highway issues are discussed. I have a good relationship with the county, the superintendent, and highway manager. I will use these relationships to look for opportunities for sharing services. I will work with the county and the state and try to address issues of salt use on our roads. I would like to create a long-term plan, equipment rotation, and look into the surplus sales. We have 70 miles of dirt roads, and I have a plan for maintenance that will improve the state of these roads. We need to cut back canopies and brush on the sides to allow the sun in and dry these roads quicker. We need to keep our culverts and ditches clear of rocks and brush. Continue to replace old culverts. I would like to continue repaving our roads. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll have Miss Andrea Hogan. Here, grab the other one.
Hi. Before I start, I want to welcome Craig Leggett from the town of Chester, Supervisor. Thanks for coming out, Craig. It's fun to see somebody else doing this, right? Yeah. I just want to ask a quick question before I get into the meat of my speech. How many of you actually have a plan to get to the polls on November 5th? Raise your hands. Awesome. Awesome. Pat yourselves on the back. Only about 50% of Americans actually vote in every year. So that's why I was checking. We're going to do way better than that, right? Yeah. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for because that's not my job. But it is important that you know before you go to the poll who you're going to vote for. Getting to the polls is a big step. Like I said, 50%. And many people ask why they should care about local elections. There is no level of government that's more directly responsible for serving you than your local elected officials. By voting in local elections and holding your officials accountable, you control what happens. Remember that. My name's Andrea Hogan, and I'm running for supervisor. Since being elected to serve as both town and county supervisor in 2018, I've learned so much. I've learned a lot about myself, I've learned a lot about this community, and I've learned how to get things done. I'd like to share a little bit of what I've learned and what we've managed to make happen in the last 2 years. I've learned that I am stronger than I ever imagined. But I've also learned that I could not do this job without the support of my coworkers, my fellow board members, and the volunteers who make so much happen in this community. I'm proud to be part of a dedicated team of elected individuals and town employees who work hard every day to address the issues that affect your daily lives. Some of the actions that we've taken in the past 2 years include developing policies that make town employee work environments safer and more efficient. We've increased funding to youth and senior programming, and I've written a couple of grants for seniors to support those increases. We've held multiple public discussions to give people the chance to voice their priorities so that these priorities can be included in the budget this year and in the future. I've also learned that the hamlets of our town each have their own history and identity. It's important to honor this individuality, but it's each hamlet's unique contribution to the town as a whole that constitutes the very character of Johnsburg. Baker's Mills Mountains and Wilderness balance the business of North Creek. Skiing in Garnet Hill gives us one season of economy, while the river running through Riparius and the Glen bring visitors in another season. After years of frustration that the county has not done, don't quote me on this, a great job of capturing, marketing the essence of our town. In 2018, we launched a beautiful website which guides visitors to every corner. I've made it a point to spend time in each of our hamlets. Most recently, I attended a Baker's Mills brainstorm. One specific concern I keep hearing is the sustainability of our fire departments. Volunteerism is dropping. The state's training requirements and the cost of equipment are huge burdens to each department. I've been working with county and state officials to identify funding sources for our departments and ways to stabilize this problem, which leads me to my next thought. I've learned that we can work as hard as humanly possible, but we need strong relationships outside of this community if we're going to thrive economically, create jobs, address affordable housing needs, and reverse the decline in population that we're currently seeing. We need to work together with our state legislators to advocate for improvements to broadband and cellular service. This isn't any longer a matter of entertainment and convenience. It's essential for our economic development, education, health, and safety. Many opportunities for infrastructure funding come through our contacts beyond our borders. The candidate you are looking for is the one who will advocate for you here locally, at the county, and statewide. My past 2 years of service to this community as your supervisor have been wonderful, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. I'd like the opportunity to continue to serve. Please vote for me.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan. Next, we will have Mr. Eugene Arsenal, please.
Up Florida, Racket Lake.
Oh yeah, what are you doing?
I was at the Great Camp.
Oh sweet. What are you doing there? Cooking?
Sagamore, yeah.
Oh good. How'd that go?
Good evening.
It's all right.
Thank you all for coming,
Yeah.
joining us tonight. My name is Gene Arsenal. I'm asking for your vote for the town board. Johnsburg has been my community all of my life. My wife Annie and I have raised our 4 children here. For over 30 years, the community has honored me with the privilege of being a member of the town board. I've never taken this responsibility lightly. It's been one of the greatest privileges of my life. We've made incredible progress together over the past few years. The development of Ski Bowl Park, standing committee to evaluate the wastewater system for the hamlet of North Creek, rehabilitation and upgrades of our water systems considerations, and the development of the Mill Creek recreation area that we acquired recently. Work has also been done to procure grants for various town projects. I would mention, Andrea, I thought Andrea would mention this, that right at this moment we have approximately $25 to $30 million in grants that are under consideration. Application has been made. We're waiting the results. We should know by the end of the year. And as Wayne Lamoth from Warren County Planning said at one of the Business Alliance meetings, this amount of funding for us will be transformative to our community. It'll change it substantially forever in a positive way. One of the examples of the grant funding that was helpful to our community was the solar panels that were placed on the town library. And it was funded from a grant from the Charles R. Wood Foundation. So there's an example where we were able to substantially decrease our electric costs for that building by having the installation of those that was fully paid for by grant. These projects have helped prepare our town for growth and have provided real benefits to our community, and we very much would like to continue down that path. But we have much more to do. Securing grants for housing rehabilitation and construction of affordable housing for families and workers. We hear this over and over again, the need for housing and housing rehabilitation in our community. Continued Main Street development. Devising a plan for upgrades and maintenance of town buildings. Continued discussion of the relocation of the town highway garage and how we'll deal with the procurement of our sand there. And continuing to prioritize our town finances to manage a stable tax levy. And secondly, I think all the citizens would be interested in knowing that our town has never operated in a deficit budget situation. For all the time I've been here, we've never entertained a deficit budget. And also, we're also a community that has no debt. And I doubt that there's very many communities in this area that can say that they are operating with no debt. And we've never had debt in all the time that I've been in office, which is interesting. A key component to our future success is effective communication between town board and the community. I firmly believe in strong two-way communication. I feel there's a renewed sense of energy, citizens' interest, and enthusiasm that I know will provide momentum to move these projects forward. For as long as I've been on the town board, I've never seen the level of interest that we have now and the excitement. People participating in government and going forward. I'd like to close with a special thank you. In the town of Johnsburg, there are quiet citizens who provide their time and their resources for the benefit of the all. These are our valued volunteers. These volunteers are vital to the operation of town government. All of us owe a debt of gratitude and sincere thank you to all of these volunteers for making our community a better place to live and work. Thank you for your time this evening. I'd be honored to continue to serve as a member of the town board, and I please ask for your support on November 5th. Thank you very much.
Okay, next we will have Mr. Justin Gagnon. Podium preference, okay.
Thank you, Martina. Good evening, everybody. My name is Justin Gagnon. I'm running for town council. So I graduated in June of 2003 from Johnsburg Central School, and I did what most kids do. I got a summer job, I attended college, and I moved out of town within a year. Now, I did come back a few years later, and my wife Allison and I are currently raising our family here, but what is the reason for people leaving, particularly young adults? I don't think it has much to do with the scenery. We are fortunate enough to live in an area that some people will save money all year just to come and visit for a week. Maybe it's small town life. It isn't for everyone. But I think the biggest factor that causes young adults to move away from our area is the opportunity that lies elsewhere. I'm speaking specifically about jobs. We all know the basic structures of a community. You have some type of industry which requires a commercial base for goods and services, and both of these support some type of residential base. In our area, the largest industry, which also supplies the most amount of jobs, is tourism. It wasn't always that way, but it is now, and it seems things are going further in that direction. So in the town of Johnsburg, how do we foster the growth of our tourism industry to create jobs and retain our residential base? I believe that it all starts with our infrastructure, and I'm not speaking specifically about houses and buildings, but rather the supporting infrastructure such as utilities and highways. Among the many projects currently in the works for the town of Johnsburg, there are two which I believe address my point perfectly: the streetscape in the hamlet of North Creek and the sewer system. The bulk of the commerce in the town of Johnsburg can be found on Main Street in North Creek. Shops, restaurants, grocery stores, a bank, and a pharmacy. And although North Creek is small in scale, many of the places that I just named simply don't exist in other Adirondack towns. I believe that through the two projects that I named earlier, the streetscape and the sewer, the area in downtown North Creek will be greatly enhanced. This, along with the town being designated as a federal opportunity zone, sets the stage to attract more commerce to support our tourism industry. But why is this important for everyone? I believe that through the development of a larger commercial district, our town would be able to cater to a larger tourism base, which would help keep them in town longer. Creating commerce and supporting our tourism industry would likely create more jobs, and the creation of jobs is the benefit that will spill over to the adjacent hamlets. Even the creation of only 10 to 15 jobs would have an impact in our community. This isn't the only effect that the supporting infrastructure would have on our town. The systems themselves would help put people to work. Infrastructure of any type requires maintenance. These systems and enhancements would provide jobs for people to watch over them, and they would provide work for contractors to repair them. I'm happy to have volunteered many hours serving on the Streetscape Committee and as a sewage commissioner. If elected, I would certainly continue these endeavors, and I would call upon the relationships that I have built at a county level to assist in making these projects a reality. I understand that these are not the only issues that our town faces, and there will be many others that come up during the course of business. However, I do believe that these projects have a great potential to affect the entire town of Johnsburg in a positive way, and I would be happy to work on them and other projects that help our town grow and succeed, if allowed the opportunity. And I hope that you will vote for me in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next we will have Kathleen Laura, please.
My name is Kathleen, or Katie, Cornwall Laura, and I have been honored to be town clerk. In this position, I have had the opportunity to meet people, learn something new every day, problem solve, and help out with people's problems and concerns. I have a couple of fun experiences to share. The first marriage license I ever issued was to a couple who, in time, came back for a birth certificate. They had had a newborn in their home, and it's the only birth certificate I've ever issued. Another was a bride calling about marriage information, and we chatted, and I helped connect her with an officiant. We had a nice chat. She was planning on meeting her and riding Rev Rail in the afternoon, and they were going to elope. in the morning. We had a nice conversation, as I said, and the next day she called back a bit in a panic and said, Katie, I don't know anybody. I don't have any witnesses. So, of course, I offered, and I got her a second witness, and Andrea and I went to her wedding. And I am still in touch with the bride. Okay, so part of the town clerk position is town and county tax collection. I was very pleased last year when the board approved a resolution allowing me to collect a partial payment of taxes. What this meant was that people who had a difficulty coming up with the entire amount of their tax bill could pay half with a $5 charge. Then the balance left accumulating penalties was lower, saving people from paying more fees. There were 106 partial payment transactions, 36 of which were paid in full by the end of my collection period in March. I found it very rewarding that this number of people benefited from the partial payment option. I would like to continue as town clerk and would very much appreciate your support.
Thank you very much. We will now have Mr. Daniel Hitchcock, please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sure everybody knows me. Been highway superintendent for 11 years here. My career, after graduating from high school, I worked in the lumber industry for several years. Was a sawyer, operated my own sawmill. Eventually became a manager for Albany Pallet for 20 years. I worked there, pretty much overseeing all the operations of the cutting facility, shipping, repairs, for a fast-moving business. I mean, we done $9 million in sales a year. Eventually, that business burnt down in Albany. I ran for highway superintendent in 2008. Started actually in November, so come this November I'll be into my 12th year. Well, working as a highway superintendent, I've tried to work real hard, not just with the town, but I've worked with the county, the state, FEMA, Homeland Security, DEC, Army Corps, APA. A lot of this was to do with 3 hurricanes that came through our town that, as everyone knows, done a lot of damage. I served on the Warren County Highway Board of Supervisors for a few years. A larger honor was in 2016, I received the Conservationist of the Year Award for Warren County Soil and Water, along with Dr. John Braco, which was a big thing to me. I've worked many hours getting the highway budget where I think it should be. I think I know it inside and out. Running as supervisor, I guess there's some things that I've seen that I don't think are moving along as fast as I hope to see them move along. Some of our bridge projects have came to a close. So my plans are to try to move some of these projects along in a more timely manner. I've replaced 7 bridges or decks. I have 3 more in the works of being replaced. And whether I get elected or not, if I don't, these 2 gentlemen here, I'll work hand in hand with those guys if they want me, since I know what's going on with these projects. I've worked on numerous grants with the county on all these highway projects. Paved usually 2 miles of road a year. Last year I done 3. Replaced, I know Fred mentioned culverts. Today we replaced the very culvert from the first year I took office. We flush every culvert twice a year, inspect them, and I had list after list after list. We maintain 1,000 culverts here in town, and I mean it takes a lot of time to take care of those, but it was pretty nice to know that today we changed the very last one. that was needed to be changed. So if elected, I look forward to serving the town. My family's lived here since back in the 1800s. Most of my family members have worked for the town at some point. My brother was highway superintendent for probably 16 years. My father was a plow truck driver. My great-grandfather was a plow truck driver after World War I and after World War II. So I guess I'm here to serve the community as needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll have Mr. Peter Olszewski, please.
It's the 8th time you've heard it, but good evening and thanks for coming again. My name is Peter Olszewski Jr. I think most of you know who I am at this point, and you also know that I am seeking re-election this year to the Johnsburg Town Board. For this particular election, I am not going to be up near the top of the ballot, which is a little bit of a change for me. But I'm actually running on an independent line that I've named the Community Vision Party. And the more I've thought about it, you know, I think I've always been comfortable having that major party line, but in a small community like this, I really believe it doesn't matter. If you're a Republican, a Democrat, a conservative, we're all Johnsburg residents. And I've worked really hard over the last 8 years that I've been on the board to serve everyone in the community, regardless of what their party affiliation is. And choosing that name, the Community Vision Party, I think that it's fitting. Because again, I've really tried over the last 8 years to think about all of the hamlets, to think about all of the different parts of town and not get too focused on just one particular area. So again, as most of you know, I have served for almost 8 years. It's been a privilege to do so. I've also been employed full-time by local municipalities for nearly 18 years. And I really feel that all of my experience with local government, it really allows me to understand the difficult issues facing small communities like ours, and then be able to offer tangible solutions. I think my voting record shows that I do try to listen to and that I do care deeply about the residents in our community. And a lot of you know that I've spent years volunteering and trying to work with and for our local youth. During my time in office, I have served on every standing committee for at least 1 year and chaired several committees, including occupancy tax. I've worked closely with and supported our local fire companies, EMS squad, and youth committee. I even currently serve as the Johnsburg safety officer. And all of this experience, again, I think it gives me a great understanding of how our town operates, what the needs of the community are, and where there might be some room to make improvements. Every year, the town is faced with rising costs, and it becomes harder to maintain all the community services that we provide. I believe that the town board members need to work closely with the supervisor to find creative ways to manage our budget, cut spending without cutting services, and look for outside funding sources, like grants, which I think both Jean and Andrea mentioned. So I believe that I've done this, and I will continue to do this. Frankly, and this is a small community, everyone knows, 2 years ago was a very different situation. And Andrea Hogan and I found each other sort of, not competing, but we were up here in different capacities. It was a bit of an adjustment for me the first 6 months, 8 months, but I will say this. Andrea Hogan and I have done a lot to come together, to work together. I think she's done a fine job, and I would be privileged to serve another 4 years working alongside her and the rest of the board that I've known for the past 8 years. So thank you again for this opportunity to speak, and